And I'm not saying anyone's like smacking each other with folded chairs up there, but they're doing their best with the incentives that they're given and with the way that many people are scoring these debates, which isn't about the nuance of their policy positions or their leadership acumen. It's about how strong they can appear by putting down and fighting the people around them. The first round of debate between Republican presidential hopefuls was a mix of pre-scripted talking points, unintelligible arguing over one another, and WWE-style attempted smackdowns, especially from Vivek. Trump's mark seems forever imprinted on political debate and discourse in the way Americans view the success of their candidates. However, it's worth asking, is this format for debate actually helpful in guiding the American people toward the best candidate possible? Some 13 million people watched the debates live between all of these Republican presidential hopefuls. There are millions and millions more who have seen the clips or who have watched it back or who watched different live streams. And really, this is, at this point, kind of like the race for number two. You know, the battle for second place. This is who's going to make the JV team because Trump is absolutely running away with it. And if you are a Trump supporter, you're probably really happy about that. If you're on the left, you might be frustrated by that, or you might be happy because you think that the left has the best chance of beating Trump out of all of the candidates. If you're on the right, but a lot of people on the right do not like Trump, then you're not happy about that. And you're hoping that some of these guys can consolidate around one guy or one woman. And overall, my issue with the debates is they're not actually about any policy. And even if they were, even if they didn't have all the theatrics and all of the jabs thrown at one another, the format itself just does not allow for the American public to hear any form of nuanced thought from any of the candidates. Now, they can go and do a town hall all by themselves and you can really hear them, but the power of debate is for all these thoughts. You can listen to them on a podcast. You can listen to them at a town hall. They can lay out all of their policies. But the sweet sauce is having someone they're running against to try and poke holes in what they're saying or to bring another perspective or to try and explain in a nuanced way why their proposal is better than the other person's. And you don't end up getting that for several reasons. Number one, everyone has a very, very short time to talk. This whole podcast, Clayton podcast, is about trying to bring nuance into some of these conversations because it just seems to be so lacking. And it's also very, very much lacking from the debate stages on both the right and the left. I mean, the presidential debates between Biden and Trump were just almost unwatchable. No matter where you're at politically, they were just two old men talking at the exact same time the entire time.
Wow.
Not fun to listen to. You know, hard to decipher who's actually making good points. And what Trump did in 2016, and it started in the Republican primaries, and look, everyone has made fun of people, and Ronald Reagan had zingers, and Bill Clinton was quick on his toes. But Trump came in like a WWE wrestler. And oddly enough, you know, he used to show up at the WWE every once in a while as a character. This guy is a celebrity. He knows how to work a room. He knows how to work a camera. So he came in, he started nicknaming people, you know, he called Marco Rubio small, you know, he called Jeb Bush. I think he was the first sleepy Jeb Bush. And it just became about character assassination. And do not get me wrong, it is entertaining. I'm not asking if it's entertaining. I'm asking if it's helpful. And you can really see Trump's mark because now what a lot of people want to see, and maybe especially on the right now, whoever is in the opposition party really wants to see is a fighter. And part of how you show you're a fighter is you go after people. And so I pulled up just some of the highlights. This video is actually from MSNBC, certainly not a right-wing news network. And every compilation of highlights is this. It is the professional wrestler going at you, terrible rap diss track. Mike Pence from the top rope, just throwing a people's elbow at Vivek. That's kind of what the whole thing is. So we'll watch some of these highlights.
This country at home and abroad. Now is not the time for on-the-job training.
Oh, Mike Pence. On-the-job training.
Bring in a rookie. We don't need to bring in people without experience.
Let us be honest as Republicans. I'm the only person on the stage who isn't bought and paid for, so I can say this.
Watch out, Vivek Ramaswamy from the top rope. It just goes on and on. Shots fired.
Climate change agenda is a hoax, and we have to declare independence for it.
I've had enough already tonight of a guy who sounds like ChatGPT.
No, he didn't. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Christie. Okay, so that was a bit for the 7 people who watch this that also watch WWE. That's John Cena. You can't see him. This is what it has turned into. It's performative. And part of what I was thinking is, do we want our politics to be that, to be WWE, to be pre-scripted, to be theatrical, to be over the top, character assassination? Do we want heroes and heels? Do we want WWE fake wrestling? Or do we want it to be actual MMA, mixed martial arts, UFC, the real deal? I'm a UFC fan, and everyone loves the knockouts. Okay. Sugar Sean O'Malley just had a crazy knockout, crazy finish. What's interesting is mixed martial arts is about seeing who is the best overall fighter. And so some guys are jiu-jitsu artists and some guys are wrestlers. And a lot of the guys who do really, really technical things are loved by true fans of mixed martial arts. And they're hated by the crowds, because they'll take someone down, they will grapple them. It's not exciting. Nobody's getting punched. Nobody's getting knocked out. You'll actually hear an entire arena turn on someone who is actively winning the fight because what they came for was not the actual art of mixed martial arts. What they came for was a realer version of WWE. They want the highlights. They want the trash talk. They want the outfits. And that's fine if that's what you want. I'm just not sure that that's how we actually determine who the best person is to lead our country. Like this format where, I don't know, 30, 40% of the debate are 2 people talking concurrently. Maybe you have a lot better auditory processing skills than I do. If 2 people are talking at the same time, it might as well be no one talking.
Wow.
I just can't do it. I hear nothing. If 2 songs are playing at the same time, I cannot hear either of the songs. And it just my brain turns off. And that's so much of what the debate is. It's 2 people talking at the same time, or 4 people all talking at the same time. And then they did something over and over again where they would take a high level issue, like an issue that would take, if you were well prepared, 3 solid minutes to explain at minimum where you're at on it. And they would say, if you're for this, raise your hand. If you think climate change is man-made, raise your hand. That's a very difficult question to just answer with the raise of a hand. Like, do humans lead to climate change? Yes. Is there a minority of the people in our country who worship nature like Mother Gaia and have completely gone off the rails? And yes, as well. There should be a nuanced discussion there. If President Trump is in prison, are you still going to support him? Raise your hands. We should have conversation around this. And I think the format is broken. And I think the incentivization is broken. And I actually think there is a psychological component to this as well. We're always assessing things that we should be afraid of. You're doing that all of the time at a subconscious level. This is why when you're about to walk in the street and someone honks their horn and you hear a motor that's close to you, you don't have to think about jumping out of the way. Your body, the very base of your brain, your amygdala that sits right on the top of your spinal cord, that's what it's responsible for in large part, is self-protection. And when we go fully, like our upper cortex shuts down and we go fully down into that amygdala, that's when fight or flight takes place. And that's when aggression also comes out. And one of the things that creates an innate sense of fear is a lack of time. When you don't feel like you have enough time to do something, there is a psychological reality playing out on debate stages that people know they're given 30 seconds to respond, and there's no way that they can give the nuanced answer that they respond. It actually leads people into a psychological state where aggressive behavior should honestly be expected. And we see it. And I'm not saying anyone's like smacking each other with folded chairs up there, but they're doing their best with the incentives that they're given and with the way that many people are scoring these debates, which isn't about the nuance of their policy positions or their leadership acumen. It's about how strong they can appear by putting down and fighting the people around them. And so I'm just wondering if it wouldn't behoove us to, number one, get to the real contenders a lot more quickly. And you might completely disagree with that. You may think there should be more people on this stage, but more people on this stage only exacerbates the issues that I'm pointing out. And you might disagree with the issues I'm pointing out. But for me, to get to the place where we have a few people who can sit down in a moderated discussion, I am officially pro-conflict. I think that conflict is necessary in almost every endeavor. It's necessary in your relationships. And we should see the conflicting ideas, the conflicting policies, the conflicting leadership styles of these people, but we should see them in longer formats. What am I suggesting? Am I suggesting that all of the candidates come on to the Clayton Tyner podcast? Why, yes, I am. I think that would be a magical idea. Is that going to happen? No, it's not. But is there a better format for this? And I don't know. Would Americans actually pay attention? Here's what James says. He says, "Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger, for the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God." We have perverse incentives on the debate stage, because if you do what Scripture instructs us to do, that produces righteousness, which is right standing. And I think we would want a right standing leader. If you do this, Tim Scott tried this approach. And I think, Tim Scott talks a lot about God and his relationship with Jesus. If he was doing this better than anyone, and it was like he wasn't there. If you're not willing to be big and bold and loud and aggressive, then you're going to get consumed by the other people on that stage. You have no shot, which means we could be putting ourselves in a position where the person who's the best at debate is the person who always wins the presidency of our country. And look, when you do debate club in school, you're given a topic and then you're given a side of that issue that you may not even believe in. But if you can argue the best, you can win for it, right? Well, that's a skill set that could be completely separate from the skill sets needed to actually effectively lead the world's leading superpower, the United States of America. Part of it is, what are the American people wanting? And the people who put on the debates are also responding to the incentive of what the American people will tune into and give high ratings to. Jesus tells this parable of the 4 soils in Mark chapter 4. And I can read it really quickly. It goes like this. "Listen, consider the sower who went out to sow. And as he sowed, some seed fell along the path and the birds came and devoured it." That's the first kind of soil. "And other seed fell on rocky ground where it didn't have much soil, and it grew up quickly since the soil wasn't deep. But when the sun came up, it was scorched, and since it had no root, it withered away. And other seed fell among thorns, and the thorns came up and choked it, and it didn't produce fruit. And still other seed fell on good ground, and it grew up, producing fruit that increased 30, 60, and 100 times." So this is about the gospel proclamation. Some people, they're just not going to be able to receive it. Some of it is going to fall on very shallow ground, people who get really excited about it at first. But man, as soon as suffering comes, they're just gone. And some people are surrounded by thorns in their life, and those thorns just choke the life out of them. And then there's a percentage that's really good ground. And this parable that is about the gospel proclamation and people receiving the gospel, it is also very transferable to many aspects of life, including how people receive any information. And some people are very shallow, and what they're looking for is a presidential candidate who can just throw the best one-liners and who isn't afraid to really go after people and make personal attacks. Some people are just on the path. They're not even in the soil yet. They're not even paying attention. Some people are living surrounded by thorns and surrounded by distraction, and all they have time for is the sound bites. And I think there is good, fertile ground that wants to actually see what someone's leadership is and understand their policies. And I don't know what those percentages are. I think it would probably be disappointing. America may not be fertile ground for meaningful, nuanced conversations, but I do think we further harden the soil and reproduce thorns by feeding the people these theatrical debate performances. And maybe our primary goal should actually be putting these candidates in a format where we can actually find out who the best option is to lead our. I hope you enjoyed this clip from the Clayton Tyner podcast. If you want to watch the full podcast, you can check that out somewhere right around here. And if you want to subscribe, you can do that right over here somewhere. Also, you can follow me at Clayton Tyner. That's Tyner on Twitter and Instagram. I would love for you to subscribe to the channel so you can keep up with everything that we're doing.